Hi, and we're back with our special guest, Monica Garcia. In keeping in with the theme of Latinos in politics, what better to have than a Latina who was actually involved in the local election here that just ended Tuesday. Monica, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, it's your first campaign. It's your first time running for office. Tell us about your experience. You know, what emotions were you going through?
Well, it was kind of interesting. I actually found out I was pregnant a few weeks after I submitted my candidacy, so it was all new. First time I've been pregnant, first time running for office, dealing with all those issues of, you know, having to get out there and work every day, and also having to deal with the nausea when I get up every day. And so it was quite interesting, because on the days that I really wanted to stay in, I really didn't have that option. So it was really a matter of pushing myself, because, you know, I was very unknown in the political world. So I really had to get out there so that people knew who I was, could recognize my face, and understand, you know, what I was about and what I was standing for.
Well, in adding to that, I know that, you know, in San Marcos, our voter turnout was 7%, which is an extremely low number. It was approximately 2,000 voters that came out. How were you able to reach those 2,000 that did come out?
Well, I think what I focused on was speaking to organizations and trying to speak to key people in communities, so that I could speak with them as they could gather more people and, you know, speak to their sphere of influence. So that was big. That was the bigger thing, is speak to the people at the top, so that they can speak to, you know, all of the ones that they know towards just all over the city. And so occasionally I'd have somebody say, hey, somebody wants to talk to you, somebody wants to meet you, and of course I'd call them, or I'd stop by and, you know, talk with them, get to know them, and you know, answer questions about myself.
How was your experience? Do you think the people you spoke to were receptive to your message? And, you know, overall, was it a good experience for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, I think I only turned out 29% of the vote, but for somebody that came out of nowhere to be able to do that, I think it's pretty awesome, because I know that when Ryan Thomason had ran against John, it was a 60-40 split. And so to think that I was only roughly about a 10% difference from somebody who had been here for 26 years, I look at that as a very big success. You know, people were able to relate to me, were able to understand me, and you know, that I think that was what made the big difference.
Well, and adding to that, you know, you did lose to the incumbent, which is one of the things. He was an incumbent, so people already knew who he was. He had 6 years of a voting record. You were a political newcomer, but as you mentioned, you were able to pull almost 29% of the vote. But also there was a third candidate who was also taking votes away from both of you guys. So with that being said, you know, almost 30% is a big number. It's a pretty big number. So what do you attribute that success to?
Well, the people that I had helping me. You know, I didn't really have a campaign manager, but I had a lot of great people that were willing to lend advice, that were willing to say, you know, here, I've talked to somebody, they want to talk to you, they want to donate money to your campaign, which was the best, you know, and everything. So I had a lot of great people working behind me and helping me move along in the right direction, giving me just guidance along the way. So I think that was what really made the big difference.
Well, here in local politics here in San Marcos recently, there's been like, you know, of the elections costing a lot more money for mayors. You know, it wasn't just our current mayor, Susan Narvaez, who was able to raise almost $100,000 for her last election. But there's been other mayors that's raised $70,000 and stuff. Were you able to raise a good amount of money, or do you think money is definitely something necessary and for the success of a campaign? Well,
I think money's necessary for everything. I mean, we need it to, you know, be able to drive around. We need it to be able to rent our apartments or live in our homes, you know, pay utilities. Yeah, it's just as important as the cost of living, because without it, then, you know, you're really limited to what you can do and how much you can get yourself out there, whether it be through media or through, you know, newspaper ads, everything. I mean, it makes a big difference.
Right. And I know that you had push cards, and you block walked, and you know, word of mouth. What do you think was most effective in getting the word out and getting out who you are and what your message was?
I think it was a combination. The block walking, along with you know, mailing out the push cards, and you know, because this was a 2 months that we had in order from when you can file to when the race actually took place. So that's not a lot of time to meet 50,000 people. And so, you know, you really have to make it a combination of all of the above in order to be able to get, you know, the most for your money, because, you know, you have to be strategic with where you spend your time. And that was, I think, using all of them is what was beneficial.
Well, now that the election's over and done, and do you think you'll run again?
I don't know. People have been asking me about that, and you know, I don't know. I can't really say right now. I know that my husband kind of joked saying that he would try to talk me out of it, but you know, we'll see. we'll see.
Well, what do you think the biggest issues were for you to push for San Marcos?
Well, I think the biggest issues were just more, you know, togetherness in our community. You know, when I said make a positive difference in our community, that was one of my platform points. You know, there are different ways that I wanted to do that. And so, you know, when you look across, our town can be somewhat divided. And so I came up with different programs that we can have to actually, you know, tie our city together quite a bit more. And then, of course, the one after that was my second point was to bring economic growth. You know, that's definitely, you had mentioned it earlier when you were talking about, you know, what are the key roles for local government, and that is a big key role, not just for the, you know, the university students, but also for the local residents as well, because that's that's going to make a big difference for how much we can get, you know, keep them paid, or if not, as we're starting to see, you know, crime will start to rise.
Sure. Okay, well now perhaps one of the biggest questions that we have, in keeping with the theme, you were the only Latina on the ballot for local races. Do you feel that that was something positive, something negative? Did it give you an extra foot in the door, or did it take something away? Or did it even play a role?
You know, I think a lot of people had mentioned that it would in the beginning, but I don't think that it really did. I think that, you know, even though that San Marcos is almost 50% Hispanic, I don't think it mattered enough. And, you know, or it played a big enough role. I know some of the questions earlier were, how do you get people involved? I think motivation has got to be a key thing, because if they're not motivated to look into any of these topics or any of the issues, then it's not going to go anywhere. And so even though we, you know, targeted the Hispanic community, there wasn't, I just don't think there was a big enough turnout. Okay.
Well, in speaking to that, what do you think is necessary for there to be a bigger turnout? I mean, whenever only 7%, as we were mentioning earlier, 7% of the people are making the decisions for 100% of the population. I mean, that's, in my opinion, it's unacceptable. You know, what kind of advice would you have to bring out more voters?
Well, I think look at the last presidential campaign. I mean, that was something that stirred me up from being very dormant in my voting history. And so I think that the biggest thing is, you know, I mean, they had a lot of money to be able to put out to campaign and to talk to people and to advertise. And I think that, again, it's going to go back to how much money can you raise so that you can be in front of these people as often as possible.
Okay, great. Well, Monica, thank you for joining us here at La Bella Vida. You offer great advice. And,
thank you. Appreciate
and I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now, guys, we had Monica Garcia, who ran against an incumbent and a third person. She got 29% of the vote. And now turning on to our topic of cocina, we'll be discussing café con leche. And actually, to offer a little insight into that, back in 1500s in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia, coffee houses were actually the place where you discussed politics. So in keeping with that tune, let's take out our Joe on the Go with our reporter, Pedro Garcia. Check it out, guys.